Hi friends, next we're going to look at the evidence furnished from the Song of Moses that Babylon the Great was Jerusalem. And here's how to go. If the Song of Moses in Revelation is about judgment on Babylon the Great, and if the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy is about judgment upon Jerusalem, and if these are the same songs, then Babylon the Great was Jerusalem. So let's begin by demonstrating that these are indeed the same songs being referenced. And so let's start by looking at Revelation. We have, they sang the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, "Great and marvelous are your works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, O King of saints. Who would not fear you, Lord, and glorify your name? For you only are holy, for all the nations shall come and worship before you, for your righteous acts have been revealed." Now let's look at the first 4 verses and the last verse from the Song of Deuteronomy. "Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. Hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Allow my teaching to fall as the rain, my words distill as the dew. Like showers upon the tender herb, abundant rain upon the grass. I will proclaim the name of the Lord. Ascribe ye greatness to our God. He is the rock, his work is perfect, and all his ways are judgment. A faithful God who does no wrong, holy and just is he." And then the last verse, "Rejoice, O ye nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He'll render vengeance to his enemies. He will cleanse his land and his people." So immediately we see a very close correlation in theme. We see God's works and ways being highlighted, as well as his name and holiness being exalted. Then we find that all the nations will come and worship before God. So Revelation is just giving us a snippet from the beginning and the ending of this lengthy song to help us understand which song he's talking about and ensure that we accurately identify the proper song being referenced. And now that we've seen that they're the same song, let's look at the context from the Song of Moses being sung in Revelation. "I saw another great and marvelous sign in heaven, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them God's wrath is finished. I saw something like a sea of glass mixed with fire, and those who overcame the beast, his image, and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. They sang the song of Moses." So we see that this is an introduction song to the 7 last plagues of God's wrath. So let's jump over and look at the recipient of the last plague, the finale plague, as it were. We have, "The 7th poured out his bowl into the air. A loud voice came out of the temple from the throne saying, 'It is done.' There were lightnings, voices, and peals of thunder, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since man was on the earth, so great an earthquake and so mighty. The great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. Babylon the Great was remembered in the sight of God, to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. Great hailstones, about 100 pounds each, came down out of the sky on people. People blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague is exceedingly severe." So when the final plague is poured out, we find the great city, Babylon, being divided into 3 parts, and it said, "Babylon the Great was remembered in the sight of God, to give to her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath." So the Song of Moses serves as an introduction to the 7 last plagues, and Babylon the Great is front and center in the finale of the wrath. Now let's jump over to Deuteronomy and see who the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy is about. Now I'll just say up front, we won't find that the song is about Jerusalem particularly. Rather, it's about Israel as a whole. However, we can observe that about 400 years after Moses, God would choose Jerusalem to be the headquarters city in Israel. And Jerusalem would be the city within Israel where God would place his name and his temple. So if we find this song is about Israel, then it's also about Jerusalem, which was the figurehead city for Israel. Deuteronomy 31, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and prostitute themselves with the foreign gods of the land where they are entering." God says Israel would prostitute themselves. Babylon the Great in Revelation is called a prostitute. Verse 19, "Now therefore write ye this song for you, and teach it the children of Israel, put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. For when I shall have brought them into the land which I swore unto their fathers, that floweth with milk and honey, and they shall have eaten and filled themselves and waxen fat, Then they will turn unto other gods and serve them and provoke me and break my covenant. And it shall come to pass, when many evils and troubles are befallen them, that this song shall testify against them and witness, for it shall not be forgotten out of the mouth of their seed. For I know their imagination which they go about even now, before I have brought them into the land which I swore. Moses therefore wrote this song the same day and taught it the children of Israel. Then Moses called the people, saying, Gather unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call heaven and earth to record against them. For I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourself and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. And evil will befall you in the last days, because ye will do the evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger through the work of your hands. So we see there that this is a last days song for Israel. We saw that the Song of Moses in Revelation was about Babylon the Great. The Song of Moses here in Deuteronomy is about Israel. So Babylon the Great was Jerusalem, the headquarters city of Israel. Okay, now the last thing I want to do is explore a few selected verses from the content of this Deuteronomy song and bring out some additional connections reinforcing our main point. Verse 5, They have corrupted themselves to their own shame. They are no longer his children, a warped and crooked generation. There they're called a crooked generation. Peter warned his audience that they were living in a crooked generation. He says, with many other words he testified and exhorted them, saying, Save yourselves from this crooked generation. And this comes up again in verse 20, where he says, I will hide my face from them. I will show what their end times shall be, for they are a very perverse generation, children in whom is no faith. You might remember that the Lord said of his generation that they were a faithless and perverse generation. And we found there that it says, children in whom are no faith, a perverse generation. Verse 21, They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God, provoked me to anger with their vanities. I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people, provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. This is quoted by Paul in the New Testament. For a fire is kindled in my anger, and shall burn into the lowest hell, shall consume the earth with her increase, set on fire the foundations of the mountains. Here we have apocalyptic language being utilized. Foundations of the mountains will be set on fire. This symbolizes the overthrow of the whole Jewish commonwealth. Verse 23, I will heap mischief upon them. I will spin my arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat and with bitter destruction. I also will send the teeth of beasts upon them with the poison of the serpents of the dust. Revelation talks about judgment of wild beasts, a fourth part of the land to be killed with the sword, with the hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. The sword without, the terror within, shall destroy both the young man and the virgin, the babe and the man of gray hairs. Oh, that they were wise, that they would understand this, and that they would consider their latter end. So again, this song is talking about the end times for Israel. Their vine is the vine of Sodom, from the fields of Gomorrah. We may remember that the great city was spiritually called Sodom and Egypt in Revelation 11. To me belongeth vengeance, I will repay. Their foot shall slip in due time. The book of Revelation is about God's time of vengeance. For the day of their calamity is now at hand. Their doom rushes upon them. For the Lord shall judge his people and be comforted on his servants when he sees their strength is gone and that no one is left slave or free. Hebrews, a last day book, quotes, the Lord shall judge his people. Because the apostles' generation was the last days for Israel, it is no surprise that the apostles should be quoting verses from this last days song. The Song of Moses, which was the last days song for Israel, finally being sung in the book of Revelation, confirms that Babylon the Great was Jerusalem, the headquarters city of Israel. Thanks, and God bless. It's just gorgeous out here, especially earlier when the sun was still hitting everything and lighting it up. Wish I'd caught some footage at that point, but it is beautiful out here in Texas. Anyway, see you next time, Lord willing.